And I've had various conversations with other prosecutors, by the way, who say categorically it's a murder case, it's not manslaughter. And it always comes back to this premeditation point, the fact that, so can you explain your view? Because you were there in the courtroom, you were one of the jurors, before we just unravel some more of what DA George Gascon said. Can you just explain why you felt that it was a manslaughter case rather than murder, and you sat in court for 5 months and that's what you determined, and that's important that we understand exactly from you why you made that determination.
Well, one thing that people seem to really, really super focus on is whether or not the brothers were sexually abused. And I would like to remind everyone that it was never the defense's burden to prove any kind of abuse. It was the prosecution's burden to prove the elements of murder. And so all of the things that they used to prove premeditation, such as buying guns, well, did they buy guns because they were planning to murder their parents? Or did they buy guns because they were terrified of their parents and thought that they might kill them, rightly or wrongly? And that goes the same for all of the other evidence, such as a lot of the evidence has to do with post-crime instead of pre-crime. Post-crime spending. Well, what is post-crime spending? That doesn't prove anything. It means that they spent a bunch of money, but it doesn't mean that they planned the murders. And in fact, the grand jury, there's a footnote in the resentencing document that says that that talks about how the grand jury did not allege the financial gain special circumstances. This is on page 4, and but that the prosecution went ahead and used that anyway. Well, why did they use that anyway? How did they get away with using that anyway? And that's persisted for 30 years, the fact that they've killed for money. And but the other, that's the prosecution version. The defense version is, well, they were rich. The family was rich. They spent money. They didn't think they were in the will to begin with. They were surprised to find out they were still in the will. They spent money because they were dealing with stress. They were trying to get their lives back on track. They had their uncle's input for spending money. They weren't doing it in a vacuum. There's all kinds of, has no one ever heard of retail therapy? You know, they were lying. That's another thing. They lied about the fact that they did it. Well, they fully expected to be caught right away. And the fact that they weren't, well, who wouldn't want to try to get away with it and not go to prison for the rest of their lives? So lying, all these elements of murder can be explained and was explained at length by the defense, who were allowed to present their full case in the first trial. And they persuaded half of both juries, and they also persuaded 60% of the court TV viewers, because I remember that there was a poll to that effect.